the Rangers Journal now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Journal pre-match show for this afternoon's tie against Falkirk in the SPFL. Our last game before our next international break in October. You've got a substitute team with you today, stepping in at the last minute. We unfortunately had two call-offs, so myself and Andrew have jumped in to make sure you're still getting your top Rangers content. So thanks for helping in at the last minute to join me, Andrew.
Oh, that's no problem, Doug. Anytime. It's I guess it's flu season at the minute, isn't it? I've had it myself. I think everyone's going through it at the minute. Still feel like death, but you know what? Nothing will be as bad as watching Rangers at the minute. So, yeah, that'll make me feel a little bit better later, I guess. I don't know.
That's it. I've got my flu jab at some point. I can't remember if it's the end of the month or start of next month, but get myself ready for winter, as they say. Good afternoon, Nicky. You have the first comment today. Thank you very much for joining us. And getting in there with the first comment of the day. We were just saying beforehand, we were quite lucky as literally as we were about to press live, the team came out. So I guess we will start there with the lineup. The lineup for this afternoon is Jack Butland in goals, Captain James Tavernier, Suter, Giga, and Cornelius. As presumably the back four, Megoma is on the bench, so it's looking like that Cornelius will be playing left back. We've then got Barron, Rothwell, and Raskin in the midfield, with Moore and Gassama on the wings, and Miovski up front. So, fairly typical selection. It looks like there, obviously with Cornelius coming in to play the left, or coming in, I say, moving out from centre back to left back there. So I don't think there's any, other than that, not really any big surprises.
No real major surprises. Obviously, Rothwell coming back into the mix. Good to see Barron retaining his place. Obviously played versus Sturm Graz as well. Interesting to see Mikey Moore coming back in. Especially after, the alleged comments. Mind you, you can't always guarantee that some of this stuff might not be true. But, yeah, Mikey Moore, he'll have a point to prove. But at the minute, he's possibly not the best option for that. But, hey, Miovski back in the mix. That's good to see. I think we all know what Miovski can do in Scottish football, but just give him service. Just give him service. I'm sick of not seeing our teams with any sort of semblance of service. And hopefully Gassama, who was probably arguably our best player against Graz, the one that looked like he was going to create stuff, hopefully we can see him turn it on a little bit today. And we can't just be a one-man band. We need people to start pulling their weight because, yeah, it could be an interesting 90 minutes.
Absolutely. We've got a couple of comments here touching on Moore coming back in there. What's your thoughts been on the sort of the whole Moore situation? Obviously, he's been getting a bit of criticism for his performances of late.
Yeah, he's a young lad. He's a bit raw. I did like what I saw of him in the Europa League last year. He's obviously going to be a talent. You will see him maybe in Tottenham's first team or at another Premier League club, probably maybe at worst a mid-table club. He's a decent player. This could be one of these situations where, is it like the Diallo situation where they maybe underestimate Scottish football a little bit? Allegedly, his family are quite big Rangers fans. He's a little bit of a Rangers man himself, so I don't think that will be the case necessarily. I just think that a lot of these players at the minute, especially players like Moore, they would probably benefit from a different manager that can set up a team that can play to strengths, because at the minute we are still persevering. Yes, we've seen some slight improvements. I will use bunny ears for that though. We are starting to kind of move the ball a little bit better, but it's still nowhere near what it should be. Yeah, like the comment there says from AJ, it probably is a year or two a bit early for Moore. Moore would probably benefit in being probably in a side like Hearts at the minute. A side like that, I think, would do well for him. Another team that's an attacking team where the pressure's a little bit different, because it can kind of make or break your career at Rangers sometimes. But hopefully hopefully he makes me eat my words today, scores a hat-trick. I'll be happy with that.
That would be fine indeed. comment here from Mayor with our only left back on the bench, lol. In fairness to Martin, it's not often I get to say that, but in fairness to Martin, he did pick up a knock in the previous game, so that's probably why he's on the bench today. Especially given that he is indeed our only left back, so we probably want to make sure we sort of wrap him up in cotton wool whenever he does take knocks. Seeing as we've now got Cornelius, who is capable, and I thought Andrew, looked pretty good actually when he went out to the left when Migoma went off in that game. He was very, very keen to get pushed forward, and I thought helped to really make that side of our attack a lot more dynamic in the second half. Because with him pushing right up and keeping wide for the most part as well, it allowed Gassama to pull in a little bit more and kind of attack the defense, which obviously led to him scoring.
I do agree. I think our left-hand side seems to be our stronger side anyway. I think with Migoma and Gassama, I keep going to say Gassam now, it's been ingrained in my brain, but no, Gassama. Granted, it's still not fully firing. I like the look of Cornelius. I think he can read the game quite well. I think it's very difficult for a player like him of his quality to come in at a time where we're a little bit of a bomb scare at the back, but he's helped to shore it up a little bit. Granted, we're still not perfect. You look at the goals midweek we conceded. We can't really put that on Cornelius though, but we do need a solid head there, and I would say he's got the mentality, especially coming, from Marseille, being a Canadian international. He's got all the attributes to be a solid player, somebody that can read the game really well, that's got a good bit of experience. I think he's a very good signing, but obviously it's a bit too early to really make your full mind up. He's only just come here, and the squad's a bit of a mess at the minute, to be frank. But yeah, no, I thought he looked good on Thursday. One of the few things you could take away from that. So it shows that we can change some things and still be good to a degree. But my big fear is it will be the same kind of rinse and repeat. We'll set up the same way, it won't work, and then we'll throw everything to the wind when maybe it's a little bit too late. But yeah, no, I do like Cornelius, and I think he'll do all right there at left back.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. I want to give a quick shout out here to Martin MC, who's just become a YouTube member. Massive thank you to Martin. You can become a member of the channel if you want to. It's just 99 pence per month, and we do put up sort of members only videos from time to time. For those who have chosen to sign up to that, you also get little badges, custom badges for the channel. For your membership, depending on how long you've had your membership as well, you get different color badges, kind of in the theme of various strips throughout history. So if you do want to become a member, you can click the join button on our channel. Alternatively, if you don't want to or can't afford to, you can just subscribe and hit that notification bell. It's a huge help to the channel, and we'd be really appreciative if you're not currently subscribed and you do enjoy our content or Rangers content in general. Then you'll get plenty here if you hit that subscribe and notification button. So once again, thank you to Martin. Andy, I've got a comment here from Paul, and a couple of other people have sort of noted this as well. On the team, Curtis not even in the squad as far as I know. I haven't heard anything about him being injured. It feels like he's kind of getting further away and from the starting lineup as time goes by. And not just Paul, but I think fans all over I'd be pretty keen to see him continue his bright spark that he made. I think it's also contributing to the dislike of Mikey Moore as well, because there's a lot of sort of feeling that he's keeping him out of the team. What's your kind of thoughts around the Curtis situation?
You look at some of our best performances, and they've come when Curtis has been on the park. And actually, weirdly, our best performances have come against teams in green this year that have, either a shamrock or a harp in their badge. But I digress. You look at that Panathinaikos game, the way he played there, natural instinct for goal, looks up, take a shot. Don't get me wrong, some of that can be, a new player coming into the team, you're kind of on a high. But according to Martin, these players show well in training. They're not showing it on the pitch, though. There's a mentality issue. Well, if there's a mentality issue with some of these players, and you've got a young player like Curtis who likes scoring goals, is somebody that really does understand Rangers for a young lad. He knows what Rangers is about. His family does as well. I think he should be playing. I really do. I think that it's the perfect opportunity to blood somebody like that in. I can see the frustration. I think also that doesn't help Mikey Moore's situation. I don't believe there's some sort of clause with Tottenham that he has to play X amount of games. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of that, but then we're not privy to these contract things, and it wouldn't surprise me that there has to be some sort of metrics that have to be met for the loan. Otherwise, it's a pointless loan. It could even be a financial thing. It could be if he doesn't play X amount of games, they will then Tottenham money or something. It wouldn't surprise me. But Curtis, you're just crying out for the lads. Has looked good and has scored goals. We just lack goals at the minute. And it does feel like a bit of madness that he's not there. But at the same time, we do have to look back at some players that are kind of thrust in too soon. I'm not saying he's being thrust in too soon. He's delivered when he has been playing for us. But obviously, Leon King is always the example that's used. That's a different scenario, though. That was Champions League, Liverpool, already a few goals down with an injury crisis. So it's a bit of a different situation. But yeah, Curtis needs to play. He really does. The fact that he's not even there on the bench is worrying. And this is the best part of the lad's career. This is where you start playing the type of football you're going to play for the remainder of your career. You know, this is where you haven't fully made, like you could play like Dessers. People say Dessers will never change because of he's at that specific age and he's playing the way that he will always play now because it's the way he's been, his natural ability and the coaching. You just can't really undo that now. And I think that's a little bit the same with Curtis in some respects, that if you don't have him playing now and developing further, he won't, if you understand. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the big signpost for me for that is when you compare Lennon Miller and Bailey Rice, who by all reports were kind of viewed very similarly in their early days at Motherwell. And indeed, from what I gather, Rice was considered the better player at the time. One has come to us and not barely touched grass. The other one stayed at Motherwell, became a first-team player, and became an incredibly sought-after player, and has now had a big move over to Italy. So I think, to me, that just demonstrates what you can get if you are playing week in, week out competitive football. I've seen a couple of people in the comments there thinking or asking, are we playing three at the back? I don't think so. I think it will just be a back four with Cornelius at left back. We sort of touched on that maybe before a couple of you joined. He did play left back on the game that Megoma took his knock and did pretty well as well. So I think it'll just be the standard back four. Gigas come in, obviously to cover the centre back position. And I think Cornelius will be out on that left back. Thelwell did specifically mention that when talking about cover for Megoma. Although I think he went on to mention most of our defenders. Because he touched on Tav and Aarons as well. But yeah, I think that's probably going to be the standard plan. We'll see if Megoma's ever out, injured, suspended, or whatever. You'll probably see Cornelius go out to that left side. But I could be wrong. But it would also require Martin to change something, which is also incredibly unlikely. I think so. We shall see. Let's see what else have I got starred here from comments. Marty. Giving a wee shout out to Billy. Hope he feels well soon. Was told he's not very well. Yep, Billy was due to be on the pre and post match, but he isn't feeling the best right now. As I say, a bit of the Christmas flu starting to pop his head in. So we do wish Billy all the better. Sure, he'll be back right as rain very soon. I will be looking at the bench there then. Not particularly anything surprising, I don't think. We've got Kelly, Aarons, Chermiti, Diomande, Asgard, Bajrami, Cameron, Antman, and Megoma. I was actually thinking just as before we came on air about the squad a little bit, and obviously I think it's a bit difficult to maybe judge the team as a whole and how good they are, how good the signings are, while we're still under a system that we think is failing, and I think it's pretty universally agreed to be failing. I mean, I'm one that does think there's more to come from a couple of these players, potentially under a different management. But one thing I kind of maybe feel like we can pull from it is that obviously we've seen, I think, we talk about patterns emerging, and we've talked about patterns emerging being something that could save Martin time, or give Martin time, I should say. However, the only pattern I've seen really emerging is that whenever we abandon Martin's initial setup, we get better. And the more he just throws things at the wall, the more he puts players on, and the players just kind of go for it and act a bit more natural rather than by rote or by training. They seem to do a little bit better. And part of that, obviously, is having players to come on and bring players on. And so I kind of feel like, that's maybe evidence that, the squad as a whole is stronger than it maybe has been in the past, because we have had times where our bench has looked very uninspiring, or it's been full of the younger players that have barely touched the ball. Whereas now, I think, you're looking at those players on the bench, and all of them could be starting players, or indeed have been starting players. Do you think that is a suggestion that, we can say the squad is overall improved and just isn't playing to its full potential?
I 100% agree. Looking at, obviously, being on the Rangers Journal, anytime we're linked with players, we do look at it. A lot of player profiles are made. Look at the metrics. Look at the clubs that they're currently at, what they do, and a lot of the attacking players we've gone for make sense. And Ant-Man, fantastic. Having a player like Osama, fantastic. You're thinking we've actually got two nailed-on wingers for the first time, where you're not going to have players being doubled up on anymore because you're going to be stretching teams too much. But obviously that hasn't happened. Obviously, jury's out on players like Chumiti at the minute. It's a lot of money. It's a big outlay for the type of player there, but still, it is a player we have purchased for quite a considerable amount of money, something we wouldn't have been able to do before. The bench has a bit of depth as well. You've got an Albanian international on the bench there who, granted, hasn't played well, really, since a little purple patch at the start, but there is a player in there. Now, granted, he's gone through a couple of managers now, so it's very unlikely, I think, if somebody else can really get anything out of him. But still, we do have some quality there. Obviously, Diamande is a frustrating one because he just seems to really not be suited to Martin Ball at all. And I think he's getting frustrated because he's lashing out a bit more and obviously getting himself sent off. We have improved. We've taken one of the best players in the Championship last season, Rothwell. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be phenomenal in Scotland, but it is a good start. Players like Dija, I think, has shown some really good attributes. Yeah, he's not been perfect at the minute, but then the whole back line hasn't been perfect at the minute. But yeah, we do have a lot more squad depth. Players like Miovski, we were crying out for a couple of seasons ago. We were really looking to get Miovski, because he's somebody that knows the league's done very well at Aberdeen, which, yes, they're an attacking side, but they're not as free-flowing as a team like us. When you get better quality, better chance creation, then in theory, you're probably going to have more goals with a quality striker, and a lot of the stuff he does off the ball is fantastic. So I totally agree. You've also got that nucleus in there of Raskin, Belgian international. Granted, we have had him for a few seasons, but he's only really come onto a game in the kind of past 12 months. But yeah, we do have more depth now. Being able to have players like Lyle Cameron as well on the bench who has shown some good promise. And Oliver Ant-Man, looking at his stats, we were thinking brilliant. He's the kind of player you want on the wing. So yeah, we have. You can't argue that we have improved. Some people might say, no, it's the worst team ever, but that's not on these players. I've got to be honest, we're hearing a lot about mentality, and it's becoming an anxiety and it's becoming frustrating. Yes, we heard from Aarons, and you do have to be honest, it does sound like he's just not suited to being at a club like Rangers. I think he really did underestimate. You could see in the Bruges game that it was almost like a get me out of here, I'm struggling, which was quite frustrating. But no, we've definitely improved. You look at the money we've spent, and you compare that to just last year where we weren't really spending anything, and even a couple of seasons before. We definitely improved. There's no argument there. It's just not being shown at the minute due to the players having the football strangled out of them by this system that just doesn't work, and they're second guessing themselves all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've just seen sight of Falkirk's lineup for the day. Unfortunately, Arfield not getting a start. I'm sure I was saying to Andrew before we went live, I'm sure we'll all be happy to see sight of Scotty Arfield, despite him being on the opposition team, but he will start on the bench for them. I'd be quite happy to see him come on at some point. So we can just see his wee face. I wouldn't even be upset if he scored and we get to see his wee salute. But hey-ho. Couple of comments as we were sort of putting there, touching on the lack of Fernandez, either not being on the bench, never mind in the team. He's perhaps the one player that we can maybe at this point kind of out and out say he's not been a successful signing just because he doesn't seem to be anywhere near the team, nor has he ever really gotten anywhere near the team, bar that game against Alloa. And obviously people upset given that he obviously was a £3.5 million spend, which for us should really be a player that is at the very least challenging for a position. I don't mind there being a player of that value on the bench per se, as long as they are, as I say, someone that can challenge. What's your kind of thoughts been on him? It kind of feels like, I feel like he's been a little bit unfortunate in the same way that Enciala has been, in that, Martin came in and said everyone's getting a chance, but Enciala just didn't seem to get his at all. He was just immediately, now you're out, I don't like you. And even though Fernandez was a signing, it almost feels to me as if it's been the same. He's come in the door and Martin's just immediately went, actually, I don't like you very much.
Yeah, he was one of the earlier signings as well, wasn't he? We saw brief spells of him at that closed door game against, was it Barnsley we played down at St George's? I think that's where we saw the famous high back line giving the ball away straight through to a one-on-one for them, and then they scored with their only chance of the game, which was how you can envisage Martin Ball if you were to look at a definition in the dictionary of Martin Ball, that would be it. Maybe he's just not as comfortable on the ball in that kind of moving the ball forwards, because it does appear that with Martin's system, it all starts with the two centre-backs, really, doesn't it? And then the most amount of touches, and they kind of try and work the ball forward. So I've seen as well, when the ball has been in midfield, but lost possession, won it back, Martin demands at times that the ball goes back to the centre-backs, which is, madness when you're already in a bit more of an advanced position, try and create something there. But hey, there's a system that needs to be adhered to. I don't know. We've seen him in limited spurts. Could be a good player. Obviously, meets some sort of metric that they flagged up on their kind of scouting. But it's a shame because, like you say, with Enciala, being at AC Milan, being at a few clubs, and actually. It struggled at first, but then started to get a little bit better in some of the later games that we saw him. Had some good ball control and actually was good at moving the ball at feet. He did have the odd mistake in him, but still young, raw. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. It's £3 million for Fernandez. Well, 3.5 maybe. I don't know, but yeah, he's not getting a look in at the minute, and you want players challenging for positions. You want people fighting over starting. So it's a shame at the minute that we're just not seeing that. But we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't think all is well in that dressing room.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've got a question from Martin here. With Russell Martin having the stats he does, do we think that Barry Ferguson would get more out of this group of players? I'll chuck my 10 pence in first. I think he would to a degree. I think we would play better in certain games. I think we'd probably be better in Europe than what we've shown thus far. But when Barry came in before, he didn't seem capable of sorting the defence. We continued losing multiple goals in games and having to fight back to get into games and get draws. So I'm not sure whether or not, coming in, whether he would still have that problem. We'd still be leaking goals against teams and still sort of having to come back from losing positions. But I think he would improve certain aspects. As I say, you'd probably see a bit more fight and a bit more conviction in those coming back, and maybe a bit more bite in the European games. But what do you think yourself, Andrew?
Yeah, I think when you look at the bare bones of it, now don't get me wrong, it wasn't Barry's squad last year. He came in and, was there as the interim. He had to try and get something out of the players. I'll be honest, I had a feeling he'd probably beat Celtic, just because it's Barry. I think he's lived it. He's been in those dressing rooms in real high pressure times, 2 helicopter Sundays, for the love of God. There's probably nothing more stressful than that, knowing that you've got to go out there, you've got to win, and not just win, you've got to win convincingly, and things like goal difference come into effect. So he's been there, he's done that. Managerial wise though, I don't know. Our stats under Barry weren't great. We were giving a lot of teams a 2-goal head start. Granted, you can't always put that down to him necessarily. That's, probably the personnel that he's got there. But we were able to motor on and actually win some of those games. Not all. There was a lot of games we did drop points in, and that does have to be said. If he hadn't beaten Celtic and Fenerbahce, I think we're looking at a very below average manager at Rangers, and that is the reality. Despite the situation that he's been in and been thrown into, I think Barry would be good as part of a setup. I don't think he'd be good as the manager. However, I don't think you'll see that now. Now he's been the manager, I just don't think you'll see him in that kind of role. Would he be better than Martin right now? Probably, because I think we play with a bit more semblance and a bit more attacking. But that's no disrespect, Doug. I think you would do better than Russell Martin right now.
I'd like to think so. I completely agree with Barry would be excellent as part of a coaching setup. I think he could, in a way that Ali McCoist was very good in a coaching setup. I think Barry would be in that he would fill that kind of role that McCoist did, in terms of he could be the friend to the players and the one that could really G them up and have a bit of a laugh when they need it, give them it tight when they need it, and be that guy that's that little bit closer to them, as opposed to the manager who maybe needs to be that step away because they're picking and choosing who's starting, who's not. And like you say, kind of have that passion, that drive, tell them, right, this is an Old Firm game and this is what that means. I think he would have that ability, and maybe, and that would be the important thing that he would bring, less that so than maybe technical aspects of tactics and things like. You'd have someone else to come in and do that. We touched on just before. Again, we came on. We sort of talked about Russell Martin, and there's been a lot of stuff come out sort of recently. I've seen a lot of sort of collage. That's what I'm looking for. Collages of screenshots of Russell Martin talking about mentality across the teams that he's managed. So MK Dons to Swansea to Southampton to here, and kind of showing a real pattern in how he talks about his teams when they're not doing well, which I think has drawn some interesting lines in that regard. There was an article that's come out today as well that's trying to suggest the mood has somehow changed in the background of the hierarchy, and that he may be on the edge going into this international break. There was talk that there was a pre-arranged review point in this international break, which sounds plausible. I think that's be about a quarter of the way through the season. Do you think, I'm sure you'll have seen, some of those images and things of Russell Martin's talking. I just want to get your thoughts on that and the way he's talked about his teams when they're, as I say, in down points, and then also, do you believe these new articles about potentially being a light at the end of the tunnel?
From what I know, now don't get me wrong, I don't know everything, but I know little snippets that I was told. I was told a while back that they would not be getting rid of Martin. There's been no emergency meetings of any sort, really. There's all been just the pre-planned meetings. When Kavanagh was coming over, that was all pre-arranged, that was scheduled. I know the papers did spin it as emergency talks and stuff. I do believe there was a meeting where they did draw up a potential candidate shortlist a few weeks ago, I think as an emergency thing, but at the minute they're still trying to hire the 15 members of staff that have all left from behind the scenes, that they're trying to plug all the gaps at the minute. Allegedly, all is not nice there. It's not a great environment to be working in, I've been told. And at the minute they're now hiring stat people. They're looking at other people now that they're filling vacancies with. So I just feel at the minute that they're not going to go down that route. I think the only way that they're going to go down that route, because they did see that there's a £4 to £5 million shortfall currently, and that will grow and that will become more when you're not filling out seats.
Yep.
You're not having the merchandise bought. Then you have to start looking and going, you know what, it probably is cheaper to pay off the manager, get somebody new in to bring everyone back. Actions speak louder than words, and I think that these guys, especially Kavanagh, obviously Kavanagh coming from a kind of health background, obviously they've got the partnership with the 49ers, but they're more of a silent partner in this situation. I think they've got something like 10% stake or something. I can't remember the whole breakdown of the whole thing, but I think they'll be surprised that, wow, okay, we're not making the money that we've seen this club make on the projected profit and losses. We do need to act, and I think they're just not used to that, because when you look at the NFL and you look at Leeds, that the fans kind of still go no matter what. It's very different here. We vote with our feet, and you can see now already the fact that the Rangers store have got sales on training wear and stuff, 20% off, get a football for a tenner if you buy a kit, all these deals, because even Umbro, I've heard, aren't happy at the minute with some of the sales stats, because nothing's working, because nobody's going in, nobody's buying, and we're doing terribly. And the only way to fix that, they know at the minute, the only way to fix that is if Martin goes. However, will they do it? I think it's when it becomes to a point where they're losing too much and it starts becoming affecting things like PSR and stuff, I think. But at the minute, from what I believe, they're not looking at getting rid of him right now, and it frustrates me to say that. But we'll see. There was that article from the Daily Express. I don't know if that's just come from that WhatsApp rumour, because you never know. They could still be looking at some options, if there's somebody that's become available, because it fixes the money situation, because it probably will become cheaper to pay off Martin than keep losing and hemorrhaging funds at our great club.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think that the thing that they'll tell more will be commercial aspects of the downturn rather than the pitch, because I think they went into this knowing that there was going to be a bumpy start, not as big a bumpy start, but I think they were prepped and ready and happy to accept that. But what they won't be happy to accept is, like you say, especially not just the internal loss of revenue from sales of tickets and hospitality, things like that, but when the pressure starts to build from the external contractors and companies that we've got, because we're not selling strips or we're not selling whatever merchandise or whatever it is, they'll start getting pressure from that end, and that will. These are businessmen at the end of the day, and they've bought the club no doubt because they saw business and profit potential, and if that's not going to be realized, then that will be what digs. I think it was
one thing I will say while you're just looking at the comments there, Doug, we were always told you would never hear from Kavanagh unless things are bad. We haven't heard from Kavanagh, so they don't seem to class this as bad right now, do they?
An interesting thought there. Paul Brussels has just spoke, and if you do want to have a look, if you go to Rangers Twitter, there is an interview there with Russell Martin. Obviously can't listen to that right now, so I'm not sure what he said. If anyone wants to pop anything in the comments, if they've read it already, then we can maybe touch on it just before we finish. There's also an interview with Mikey Moore, everyone's favourite player in the starting lineup, so you can go and see what Mikey has to say as well. A couple of pictures of the players looking fetching in their training gear as well. They've all got very stony looking faces on, which is
that's a game
fine.
face.
That's it, game faces. People hate it when the players are happy. So
no mentality issues there with them faces, is there? No anxiety there, eh?
That's it exactly. Let's have a quick scroll through here, see if anyone's added anything about what Russell has said. No, nothing at the moment, but we shall see. I'm sure he's talked about energy. He's probably talked about the training going really well. And that he's confident the mentality has improved and they're in the right place for this game, which will signal another perfect 1-1 draw. But is there anything else you want to touch on before we head off?
No, I think you're right there. It'll be the same kind of buzzwords. I do think he is feeling a bit more of the pressure now. I think the thing is you can overanalyze things sometimes. we can look at a manager the way he's talking. I think if he was to look happy right now, we'd be peed off. I think if he was to look angry right now, we'd be peed off. We can't help the way we feel right now, and Martin is a big part of that. Like you said, the anxiety stuff that's come through every club he's been at. It's something that he's got to look at and go, you know what, this doesn't quite work wherever I am, because it's creating anxiety. So maybe I need to change and adapt as a manager. I don't know. That's
the big thing I don't understand, is that, I mean, even if none of that stuff existed in the previous club, that's, if the players are anxious, that's still a part of your job as the manager to deal with, to improve, and to basically sort out. And if you're saying that at club after club after club, surely you at a certain point you have to go, well, what's the common denominator? I am the common denominator. So am I doing something wrong? Do I need to change something? But yeah, again, that we come back to us about having to change things, and he's not been the best at that in his career, shall we say. Okie doke. So I'll just quickly finish off then for anyone who maybe I've clicked the wrong button and erased Andrew from the picture. For anyone who wasn't here earlier, the starting lineup for today's match: Butland, Tavernier, Suter, Giga, and Cornelius. We expect that will be a back four with Cornelius at left back in place of Magoma, rather than a back three. Barron, Rothwell, and Raskin in the midfield three positions. Moore and Miovski, Moore and Gassama, on the wings, and then Miovski up front. That is your team today for beating Falkirk. Have we got a prediction from you, Andrew?
Do you know what? Sometimes you throw tomatoes at a wall, it will stick at some point, like it did kind of last week. I think it will be a hard fought 2-0 win. I think we will win. Just based on the fact that we technically have better players than the opposition. No disrespect to Falkirk. Falkirk will be a difficult side. They have the young lad up top. I forget his name now. McIver, I think it is. Quite a good finisher. They use their wingers quite well. I think if they can stretch us a little bit. But also Scott Bain, we all know that name. He's been having a fairly decent stint at Falkirk as well, so he might be quite hard to beat today. But yeah, I think we can. I think we can win. I think the first goal's important. As Ryan has been saying a lot recently, and he's correct, I think the first goal's important. It's like the Sturm game. I think that goes down a bit differently if we get the opening goal. If we go a goal down, I think it'll be difficult. But I think we'll win 2-0. I think we'll win 2-0. I think Cornelius will show things up a little bit. I know he's not quite a full natural left back, but I just think that defence will just be a little bit tighter today.
Absolutely. So just to finish there, Alexander, Scotty Arfield, unfortunately, he's not starting. He's on the bench. He's kind of been a bit 50-50 for starts with Falkirk so far. But as I say, hopefully we'll get to see him coming on. As that may well be the happiest thing that we see today, Scotty Arfield's little face. So as I say, I'll be quite happy to see him come on later in the day. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Andrew, for, as I say, coming in last minute to cover as well. We go into this game as we do all games, hoping for Rangers to win. But if it's another draw, then hopefully that could be another nail in Russell Martin's coffin. It's a terrible catch-22 to be in, but we struggle on nonetheless as fans. My prediction, I think I'm going to say 2-0 as well. Actually, I think we might come off okay. I think Cornelius will make a difference in that attack. From an attacking sense, actually, being on that right side as well, because I think Magoma has been solid. He's been a decent, solid player. I've been pretty happy with him on the whole. He's had a couple of blips here and there, but on the whole, he's been pretty good. But his output could be improved, and his attacking effectiveness could be improved. Whereas I don't know, that little stint from Cornelius really made me think, that actually looks like it could be a really good option. So I'm quite excited to see that. So yeah, I'm going to go for 2-0 as well. The two of us will be back. Roles reversed. Andrew's going to take the lead for the post-match, so hopefully he'll have something happy to lead on. We'll see how we get on, but enjoy the game if you are watching it. It's on Sky Sports if you're looking for it on the TV. Or if you're going to the game, obviously enjoy that as well. We'll be back later, as I say, to talk about the results, whatever it may be. So thank you for tuning in. Just remember that every night it's a Rangers journal. Bye. See you in a bit.